of the parents, put it into a tank with nothing else in it, and the eggs will hatch there, and then you raise the larva there. So.
Hey John, when they transfer the nest from one tank to another, do they just pull the whole tile out and move the tile? And
that's one of the reasons why I use tile or flower pots, because they're very easily removed and replaced with a brand new one. And then you can you have to run air over them to keep the water circulating. So you put an air line for a flower pot with a hole in the bottom. You just put the air line out through the hole, and it bubbles out through the flower pot. And that actually helps get the fish to hatch, get the larva to hatch. And so here you can see that's a larva. This is a really fat larva, so Sanjay did a very good job of feeding them. You can see his belly right here. And these are rotifers. I mean, that's how small the food is that they're eating. This thing is no longer than a millimeter, and that's what he's eating, right? So we're talking small. And then he's got, so this is a day 4 larva, day 4 after hatching, day 6 after hatching, day 7, still fat, he's very good at feeding them. And then by day 13, we've got a head stripe.
So there's this hybrid?
These are the hybrids, that's right. And he got them to day 24, and then he said they got ick. Now that is very weird for an entire batch to get ick, but there they are dead at day 25. But he got a second batch, and he did them, and here they are at, he didn't say what day, but those are well beyond day 25. That's like day 90 or 120 or something. Pretty good looking fish. Now that is an onyx black ocellaris hybrid. But he does a very nice job of showing us how these things progress over time. And he's a much better photographer than I am. That's what I'm using. All right. So where do I raise the larva? That's where I raise the larva. That's why you don't have many people doing it, because it's big, ugly tubs. The nice thing about these are in a breeding hobby, these are called BRTs, or black round tubs. And BRTs,
Get the lingo
you
here.
gotta get the lingo, because they will just say, so who's using BRTs?
Walmart.
Right. Those are 20-gallon BRTs, and they've got a standpipe in the bottom of them that goes down to that sump. The nice thing about round tubs is there are no corners. If you try to raise clownfish larvae in a 20-gallon or a 10-gallon glass tank, sometimes they will get stuck in the corners and die. So in the BRT, there's no such problem, and you get a nice circular, complete water flow. But it is ugly.
It's hard to see the larva when they're that dark black.
It is, but what you can do is I put a light directly over them, and they feed a lot better when you have a light like a 20 or 15 watt fluorescent above them. They tend to do better, but it is hard to see them.
What keeps them from going down the standpipe?
Yeah, that's how.
Oh, well, the first, for me, I don't have water flow from the sump going to the BRT until they've gone through metamorphosis. You could, I bought screening, like a mesh screening, and you can get a fine mesh screening so that the only thing going through is water. You can even get so fine that the rotifers stay in the tank. But those clog really easily, and they're a real pain. So it's much easier just to do water changes for the first week, get all the detritus or dead larvae off the bottom, all the dead rotifers off the bottom, fill it with new salt water, and just do that until they go through metamorphosis.
Now you've got an everyday water changes.
I'm not that good. I mean, if I had a very large hatch, 200 larvae, I would. But my hatches lately have been kind of small, so I do about once every other day, every third day. But yeah, the more you feed, the more larvae you have, you should do more frequent water changes. Okay. So this is a photograph of mine that indicates just how small these things are when they go through metamorphosis. That's him. And I apologize for the blurry picture, but that gives you an idea of just the size you're talking about. That's why it's so difficult to do it, because feeding those guys feeding them rotifers when they until they go through metamorphosis. But after that, people feed newly hatched brine shrimp, or I just cut that out. I just go straight to flake, pulverized flake, and it does pretty well. So that's an Ocellaris. So how do you get your fish to spawn? You have to have two. Reef keepers love to have one fish of a species in their tank, and that's all they want to do because they don't want the fighting that goes along with, the sexual behavior. And sometimes it's hard to find out which is the male, which is the female. We still don't know which is the male and the female for yellow tangs or some of those. So it can be a problem. But if you know what species you're doing, research it and find out how to tell male from female. Get two. Okay. It does. Second thing you do is feed. Reef keepers typically feed once a day, once every other day. I know some people feed once a week. Okay. While it will give you a pristine tank, it's going to give you skinny, scrawny fish that aren't going to spawn. And if they do spawn, you're going to have about 3 eggs, right? So you got to feed not only quality food, but quantity. So I feed the fish that I'm trying to get to spawn, I feed them between 2 and 5 times a day. I feed a seafood mash that I make myself. Shrimp, scallops, squid, cod, multivitamin, and nori, all blended up. I feed fish roe and mysis and pellets. So basically anything you just throw it at. And your fish will get huge. I mean, I've got a perk that she looks double wide. She hasn't spawned yet, so you just got to keep at it. So the other thing is water quality. So after you feed all this, you got to do a water change. So I do basically on the broodstock tanks, I do maybe a 2 to 5 gallon water change every other day. Siphoning out the bottom, getting all the food they missed, and filling back up. Feed some more after you do your water change. And you gotta be patient. It takes a very long time. Most clownfish won't spawn until the female is at least 2 to 3 years old. And that usually it means 2 to 3 years of good feeding. All right, so here are some fish resources. If you want to learn more, there's marinebreeder.org, that's MOFIB. There's mbisite.org, and this is a website that I'd like to get en masse hooked up with. Basically, it's a breeders initiative website. It's a breeders challenge, and they give a point system for spawns that you've had, or fish that you've raised, or fish that you've raised to 60 days post-hatch. And it's basically bragging rights. But you put, if you become an affiliated website to MBI, so InMass could affiliate itself, we would post our information on our spawning journals on InMass, and it would get credit on MBI. And it's, MBI is operated by Masna, so it'd be a good way to get in good with that. And then the next slide is a video from Matt Peterson. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him, but he is a real pioneer in fish breeding, and he's the guy who currently has the lightning maroon clownfish. I don't know if you've seen that or heard about that. But really, this next slide is, I think, more spectacular than that. It's a real achievement. Alright, so this is one of his tanks. And there you are witnessing simultaneous spawning of clownfish and orange spot filefish. Same time. So right around here, the female is making a spot. There they go, and that's it. That's all it took. And he has raised orange spot filefish through the larval phase, through metamorphosis to juvenile stage. And They're not coral eaters. If you look right there, he's got hard corals in there. They're not touching them. It can be done, but it requires lots and lots of patience.
Looks like
and
some other
feeding.
fish came up right at the end.
Getting ready to have
Yeah,
dinner.
getting ready to have lunch. The other thing that those filefish need is a hair algae. They won't spawn in anything but hair algae. So,
No problem.
no problem. You're halfway there. All right, that's all I got. Thank you.